Right, welcome everybody. It is Dr. Gill here. I'm really excited that you have clicked on this video to watch it. I've been doing this as a workshop for, almost 10 years now. And we do it consistently because we see by far that people that end up getting this workshop information and applying it get better results, faster results, and just live a better, healthier life. And I know that's exactly what you want. So again, congratulations on doing this. Now, the reason that this makes such a difference in people's lives is because of, just like the old quote says, and I just fell in love with this quote the moment I heard it. It says, you can't hire someone to do your sit-ups for you. Right? There's certain things in life that you just need to be able to know and do on your own. Now, here's the difference though. It's knowing and doing. Because that other saying that we've been told of knowledge is power, it's actually a lie. You see, we all know things, and I'm guilty of this myself, that we all know things that we should do that would be good for us, but yet we're not doing it. So it really has no benefit to us of just knowing it. It's knowing it and doing it. It's all about making it applicable and actionable in our lives. But first, we do need to have to know things. So now I'm going to take you through this process, and it's very important that you get to stay focused. So if there's any noises, if the kids still aren't in bed yet, or whatever the case is, either wait till the kids are in bed. So press pause and wait till they're in bed, because I want you to be able to focus on this information. Close the door, get your notepad, get your glass of water, and get ready to pay attention. So now, the first thing that we're going to do on that is what we call is the awareness test. It is critically important that we assess this awareness right now because I want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this experience possible. So I'm going to play a little video. It's only a minute long, and it's called the awareness test. And it'll explain the rules in there. But essentially, there's two basketball teams, black t-shirts, white t-shirts, and you have to count the number of passes that the team in white makes. So play along with me. Shout out your number when it's done, and then we'll see how well you did. Ready? Let's play.
The answer is 13.
And how did you do? Did you get it?
Did you see the moonwalking bear?
What? All right, this time it's going to rewind. Pay attention, but don't count. All right, no counting this time, and just look to the right of the screen, and you'll see the bear come in, do his little dance in the middle, and then walk out. And there you have it. The point is what it says here. It's easy to miss something you're not looking for. And I'm going to refer to this moonwalking bear throughout the workshop today because this is something that when you see the bear, it changes the whole story. It changes what you're looking at. It changes what just happened, right? Whether that was intentional as we did, and sometimes it happens in life that we're intentionally diverted our focus to something. And sometimes it's so well intentioned to say, hey, look for your answers over here. And yet it might be in the wrong direction. Because there's also another saying that says, you can get the right answer to the wrong question. The quality of your answers depends on the quality of your questions. So we need to make sure our questions are even correct. What are we basing things on? And so because today we're focusing on the topic of health and your results in the office, we need to say, well, what do we base our health on? Because the truth of the matter is, most of us, if not all of us, have been taught to base our health on how we feel. And this is, sadly to say, one of the most dangerous ways that we can live, is basing our health on how we feel. Because why do they call heart disease the silent killer? Because most people approximately 60% of people find out they have heart disease by having a heart attack. If we're waiting for these signs and symptoms to show up, in those cases, they're very serious. That's not fun. That's not cool. And nobody wants this. And yet basing our health on how we feel is what allows us to go to the point of developing chronic diseases. Because 93 to 97% of chronic illness is caused by lifestyle and our environment. And our environment because our lifestyle is so toxic. So we need to understand that we're responsible for the majority of illness and disease we're creating in our own lives. And it comes down to the fundamental fact that we are basing our health on how we feel. And yet, on the other side of the spectrum, I can feel horrible, like food poisoning. And yet, that's absolutely healthy. Your body is literally saving your life in that moment, because if you've ingested food poison, for example, it's trying to get the poison out. We have a fever to burn things off and just to cleanse things, just like if you have to boil water out camping before you use it. It kills off the bacteria and viruses, and your immune system is designed to work better at high temperatures. So even though we feel bad, it's actually very healthy. Same thing if you're hungover, if you stub your toe. It's gonna hurt, and it should, because it's your body letting you know what's going on. You pushed its limits. It needs time to recover and heal. It needs water. But by taking medication just to feel better doesn't actually solve the problem. We need to make sure we're paying attention to how we're feeling, because it's guiding us, not shutting it down, or if I feel fine, I must be okay. Because here's the reality. Such a small percentage of your nerve system is actually for feeling. And if you look down at those sensory nerves, the things that we feel with, the sensory system. So that's your sight, your taste, your sound, the touch, and all your senses. And a portion of that, so a small fraction of everything that goes on in your brain, in your body, do you actually feel discomfort for? And so if that's the only thing that we're basing our health on, it might actually be tricking us. An analogy I like to use for this, it's as if there was a fire alarm, right? So fire alarms are like symptoms. They're signs warning us of, well, a fire is going on. So just basing our health on how we feel and treating the symptoms to get rid of the symptoms so that I feel better, it would be the exact same thing as if the fire department would just show up to shut the fire alarm off. We say, well, that's why you called me. You called me because there's a fire alarm going off. We came, we assessed it, we determined, yes, there is a fire alarm, and we did something to shut the fire alarm off. Because no fire alarm means no fire. But did we actually handle the fire? No. So in another turn point, what we would do for actually dealing with fires is we don't actually worry about the fire alarm. When the fire department shows up, their last concern is the fire alarm itself. It's finding out where's the fire. Once they've handled the fire, put out the fire, then what happens to the fire alarm? It shuts off on its own. So at the end of both scenarios, the fire alarm's off, but the state of the building is completely different. And yet, when we stop the fire, we're not done there. We need to repair the damage of the fire. We need to find why the fire started in the first place, and maybe why my sprinkler system, my built-in mechanism to put out fires, my healing ability of my body, if it isn't functioning as effectively as it should have to let that fire get that big, we got to assess that as well. And this is where we need to take it from a different perspective of not just basing health on how we are feeling and just dealing with the alarms, but actually dealing with how we're functioning. So yes, we need to put the fire out, but your body is designed to heal and to function and to regenerate. That's what we are constantly doing on a day-to-day basis. And so if things are breaking down, things are getting to dangerous levels of fires, then we need to ask ourselves why. Is it just an accumulation of stress going on? Or is there something deeper and there's actually a disturbance in our function? Because health, your state of health, healing, and adaptability and dealing with life and moving through it successfully doesn't depend on how you're feeling. It depends on how you're functioning. You see, if you have optimal health, you're going to feel great most of the time. But just because you don't feel good doesn't in and of itself mean that there's something wrong. Maybe there's something right going on and your body's trying to help. Maybe there is something going on and we need to address that. And to be able to determine that, that's where I have developed what I call the health equation. It's a very simple equation, but when anything's going on in life and in health, we have to go back to this equation to understand, are all the elements there that are necessary for my body to function properly, heal properly, and adapt properly. And if that's happening and I feel like crap, that means I should. And that's okay. But if things are going on and I look and I have some of my elements of my health equation that are out of balance, that aren't working for me or I'm not doing correctly, then I have to fix those. And by fixing those, by making sure my body has everything it needs to be healthy and nothing that's detracting it from being healthy, then it will produce health. It will heal. It will regenerate. It will recover. It's how you're designed. And if you do that, what will happen to the symptoms? They'll go away. That's why I love being able to tell people that I don't treat any symptoms. Whether it's back pain or headaches or autistic children or ear infections or constipation or digestive or allergies, or the list goes on and on of the things that people have been able to see health and healing recover from. But in a sense, I didn't do it. I can't heal your body. I can't heal your child's body. My body heals itself as long as it has everything it needs and nothing that detracts it. And your body's the same way. And so we need to take a look at this health equation. What does it require for your body to be healthy? Now, there's a lot of elements in here, and we're not going to be able to dig deep into every single one of them, but we'll get a good overview, and I'll tell you a little bit after on how we help you learn more about these categories. Now, the three main categories that people will understand and that we think about, and when we were asked you in a workshop, in a live setting, people always answer the food that we eat and the exercising. Those are essentials for our body to be healthy. Now, some people, and more nowadays, people are talking about how we think, our attitude, our mindset, our brain, right? How we're thinking. And I don't just talk about positive thinking. That is an element, but I talk about productive thinking. We have to have stimulated thinking, almost like if we don't use our muscles, if you don't use it, you lose it. Why they've seen in research studies how people with Alzheimer's or dementias improve, or we actually stave it off by doing things like crossword puzzles and Sudoku puzzles and community involvement. Right? Community support and having family to take care of. This helps our brains and our sense of purpose in life. Now, if we move backwards to the middle in the move category, you see I say move and not exercise, because in a sense, exercise isn't necessary for our body to be healthy, but movement is. Because the misnomer there, or what people think of often when we're talking about this is, well, I exercise all the time. Okay, great. How many people do you know, and you might be this person, you exercise 5 times a week for an hour a day, and then after that hour of exercise, you get in your car to commute or get on the train to commute to work. So let's say your commute's an hour, and then you sit at the office for 8 hours a day. And then you get back on the train or in your car and you commute back home for an hour. And then you get home, you eat dinner, you put the kids to bed, and then maybe you unwind with a book or with watching TV or a movie. Now you've just spent 12 plus hours in your day sitting and not moving. And yet you exercise that hour, so that's going to be better than not doing it, absolutely. However, we need to get more motion in our day. They say that sitting is the new smoking, or sitting is the smoking of our generation. We need to move constantly. It's very important for our bodies and for our brains that we move constantly. Now, we need the different levels of motion, so yes, get your exercise in, but make sure we're moving constantly throughout the day. And then when we go to eat, it's the same thing. Just because you took your multivitamins and your green powder and all these things doesn't mean you get the right to just eat McDonald's the rest of the day. It's what you do most of the time, not just some of the time. So we need to make sure that our food is actually food and it's clean and as pure and just from source as possible. Now, even with all this, we still know people that live a very healthy lifestyle in these three categories, or at least two of these categories, and then yet they still develop chronic illness. And that's because, one, there might be some intricacies in these categories that are going overlooked, these moonwalking bears that might be going on in there. And we want to help you with that. But what's also going on is, what about how is everything working? Because if we don't have proper control to our digestive system and we put in good food into our system, but our body, it's not what we eat, it's what we digest. And so if the control mechanism from the brain to the stomach is in stress mode, whether you feel that or not, then your stomach won't be able to digest. Because think of when you feel very stressed, you can't digest, you can't sleep, your body immune system actually gets shut down. And it's when we're in this stress mode. So we need to make sure that we're controlling and coordinating our bodies effectively through the nerve system. Because the role of the nerve system, as it says here, the role of the nerve system is to perceive the environment and to control and coordinate the behavior of all the cells. Now, I know you can read, but I'm going to read this to you one more time because it's so profound and so important. The role of the nerve system is to perceive the environment and control and coordinate the behavior of all the cells. This is your digestive system. This is your emotional system. This is your immune system. This is your muscular system. All the systems, the behavior of your systems, emotions, everything, is under the control and coordination of your nerve system based on what it's perceiving. The input that you're giving, so from the food, the movement, and the thoughts. How is it even perceiving those things? Because you might be doing good things, but it's not perceiving it very well, right? This is where we focus on things in the office, because your spine and your nerve system are intricately connected. And more specifically, they're attached. Your spinal cord is attached at the top and the bottom of your spine. And so in that essence, it works like a guitar. If I tighten or I loosen the strings of a guitar, what happens? That's right, it changes the vibrational tone. It changes how the chord sounds. And so if the guitar's out of tune, or it's tuned to one key and I'm playing in another, the song's not going to work. So if we're trying to give our body stimulation of muscles or digestion and we need healing happening, yet it's tuned to stress mode, sympathetic mode, fight-flight mode, it can't do those things effectively. And so if there's any imbalances in that spine, if it's not moving correctly, it's like we're tightening or loosening those cables on the guitar and they start vibrating and signaling at a different frequency and more that stress physiology. And this is why we measure the stress physiology, because it's not necessarily if this is out, it's going to be wherever those nerves go, right? Think of it almost like this towel. When I take the two ends of the towel and I wring the towel, you can see the water pouring out from various areas, mostly in the middle. So it's not actually where I apply the tension, it's where the tension gets built up in the system. It might be somewhere else. And that's where we need to look at the entire spine and the entire nerve system, be able to understand how is yours tuned? How is that tension affecting your neurology, your nerve system, your body's communication? So I want to walk you through a few different examples here of how this plays out in real life. Now, for our first example, we have Mateo here. Now, if you've had your scans done, or if you're a spouse, you haven't seen these yet, but for you who have had your scans, just a quick breakdown or run through this. if we see white bars, that's clear signals within normal limits. Then we have green, blue, and red, as you can see on Mateo's scans here, that go mild, moderate, and severe nerve disturbance in and around those areas. So what this really showing us is his nerve system on a wide scale is mild, moderately stressed, and he has a severe disturbance up at the top. So we see a lot of stress and one-sided imbalance going on in his nerve system. How that guitar is playing that tune, it's imbalanced and stressed. Now Mateo, when we did these scans, was 4 years old, and he came in because he was constipated. Now he had digestive issues since he was born. And like any muscle memory, the more you do something, the more that gets ingrained. And so the more it was functioning in that stress physiology. And so the constipation or the digestive issues kept getting worse and worse and worse. To the point that by the time he was 2 years old, he wasn't going to the bathroom, and they had to give him laxatives to make him go to the bathroom. So he had to take laxatives every single day from 2 to 4 years old just to be able to go to the bathroom. Now, obviously, that's not the answer that they want for Mateo for the rest of his life. And so they wanted to seek out another answer. They were looking for this moonwalking bear that was around them, but they couldn't see, but they had the inkling that it was there. They wanted a different solution. So they looked at, they didn't think of this, but they looked at the health equation and said, well, what about nutrition? That's a very common one. So they seeked out the help of naturopaths and dietitians and nutritionists, and they got some great advice. They said, he needed some fish oils, some probiotics, and start cutting out things like grains and dairy. All healthy choices to make, so that makes that category of the health equation better. Now, in some situations, that will improve the situation. So they would make him go to the bathroom. In Mateo's, it still didn't. All right? Just because the symptoms are gone, for some people, doesn't mean that the rest of the equation is balanced. So this is one important key to keep note of. And for Mateo's, it was very obvious that the rest of the equation wasn't balanced because he still wasn't going to the bathroom. And so they kept searching. And so through a mutual friend, Mateo was referred into the office. Now, when we did his assessment, we said, okay, all those nutritional changes that you made, keep them. And in fact, probably make sure you're doing it for the whole family, because those are healthy choices. So we want, even though they didn't make him feel better, they still made him healthier in the background. So those are good things. Keep it up. Now, he has stress in his nerve system, and you can't digest when you're stressed, and it was very apparent for him. And so for Mateo, as we started adjusting him, and you can see the changes on his scans, we're starting to see more balancing, flip-flopping of his nerve system. The bars getting clearer in their signaling, getting out of the stress nerve system physiology, so his body can get to digestion. So it happened that within 2 weeks, Mateo was able to stop his laxatives. Now again, he wasn't pooping like a champ yet, but he was able to go to the bathroom on his own. And it took about 2 months for his nerve system to fully reset, rebalance, and his digestive system to reset, so that he was going to the bathroom with ease regularly all the time. So it takes time for that muscle memory, even if it's for our digestive system, to reset. Because it's really not the muscles that remember, it's the nerves telling them what to do. And as nerves fire together, they wire together. The longer they've been wired together, the more they're hardwired together. So the longer it takes in that terms of the consistency and the duration of the frequency of those adjustments to allow that nerve system the time and space to reset. And that's why we redo these scans every 12 visits, to be able to track those changes and track when we're in that stability phase for the nerve system to say, okay, now we can change the frequency of the adjustments and move on to more of a lifestyle and wellness scale to make sure we're keeping up with the stresses of life. Next, we have Tyler. This is a extremely stressed out scan. And when people see this, they're like, whoa, what's going on with Tyler? How long has this been going on for? Now, the thing about Tyler is that he's 5 months old at this scan. He was screaming uncontrollably for the first 5 months of his life. He was a colicky baby. Now, the thing about colicky babies that I hate is the advice that they're most commonly given, which is that they'll grow out of it. Because the truth of the matter is, they grow out of the symptoms of it. Your alarm might be going on for so long that the battery runs out. And so now there's no alarm. Does it mean that this stress that we see in his nerve system is magically disappeared? No. His brain's compensated. It does the best it can with what it's got. So you give it enough time, it's going to compensate. But now he has a compensated pattern working through his nerve system. And he learns at 5 months old, he has no other way of expressing his stress and his discomfort than screaming uncontrollably. And so Tyler's mom brought him in to the office, and we started getting him checked. Now, one of the things that's very common with these types of kids, especially to the extreme that Tyler was, is that he was actually born by C-section. Now, I bring that up because it's a very common moonwalking bear, if you will. That one out of 3 kids today in BC is being born or birthed by a C-section. Now, in many of the cases, it was necessary, and it's great that we have those means to be able to do that. Yet at the same time, we have to think of how do they get them out. Very often, they're pulling them out by their heads. Now, that is going to cause some extra stress and strain to their necks. Now, it had to happen. It happened that way. It's what it was. So we don't need to worry about that so much, but we need to understand what is it actually doing to these kids. Because there was a study that was done by a medical doctor named Gutman. And Dr. Gutman found he was looking at what's called KISS syndrome, kinematic imbalance with suboccipital strain. So where the movement was imbalanced in the upper neck and there's strain at the base of the skull. We call this a subluxation, an imbalance of the spine causing disturbance to the nerve system. And he found that 80% of vaginal births actually had a KISS syndrome, or what we'd call subluxation. So now, if that's with normal vaginal births, the probability goes up when we're talking about C-sections. And so we need to make sure that these kids, and all kids, are just getting checked as early as possible, because at what point do we want neurological disturbance and stress going on? Never. But if we're just waiting on how we feel, we may wait a while, because most of what goes on in our body is behind the scenes. And just like a cavity, things can be developing without us actually knowing it. Or, as we see in these stories, it actually shows up in one way, these alarms ringing, but we got to go back and look at the function of the body first. So with Tyler, as we started adjusting him every time, he would just calm down. And his mother would actually leave crying sometimes because she was so happy that she had her baby. He was happy. He was healthy. Now, it didn't last. But visit after visit, it started lasting a little longer and a little longer and a little longer. Just like why you have to work out consistently, because the workouts build up on each other to be able to create a higher level of function and stability. And so after a while, yes, he had a calm neurology, calm nerve system that he could live his life through. And so then when she had her second baby, who was also born by C-section, she had him in here at 3 days old because she understood the difference. And she wanted to create what I love creating, which is my mission in life, is to create what we call as silent miracles. The stories that you never have to hear about. I love sharing these amazing stories like Tyler and Mateo and this next one. But I'd rather just health and optimum life expression just be the story from the start. They're not miraculous in some ways, so we don't talk about them as much. But they're the more important stories that we need to be creating. And so she brought her youngest in at 3 days old. Just like I've checked my kids within, my firstborn was at 4 hours old and my two little girls were at 45 minutes old, because I wanted to make sure that their nerve system, their bodies get the best start in life. And we check them on a regular basis because I want to make sure that we can keep it that way. Just like why we always brush our teeth and eat healthy foods. We want to make sure we give ourselves that best opportunity. Now we have Alan. This is a very extreme scan. This scan here is when we look at what's called total energy. Alan's system, to just sit there for the scan, was raging at 560% total energy. It should be at 100%. 560% total energy. When we think of how his brain and his body are just charging and surging and sending all these messages, we can understand now why he has a hard time sitting still. Everything is so sensitive to him. His body, his brain is just racing at 560%. So I don't treat autism, ADHD, just like colic or constipation or ear infections or back pain, neck pain, or headaches and all these things. But you take this neurology and you bring it from 560% to 170% for him, that makes a world of difference. We calm and balance the nerve system so that his body can perceive, control, and coordinate in a calmer and balanced fashion. It's not about treating symptoms of removing alarms. It's allowing the body to function and heal the way that it's designed to. Right? So we got to go back to that health equation and make sure we have all of these elements, how we're eating, moving, and thinking in as clean and non-toxic as possible. But I love this quote by my buddy Jeff May, Dr. Jeff May. And it says, "Get adjusted, then eat your carrot." That way, whatever you're doing in terms of your nutrition, your exercise, and how you're stimulating your thinking, your body is perceiving, controlling, and coordinating it effectively from the start. So we need to make sure we're well adjusted, that our nerve system is calm and balanced, and then we make sure that we're giving it everything that it needs in terms of good, healthy, organic carrots, right? Good, healthy, constant, changing motion, and good, healthy, stimulating, engaging, purposeful thoughts. And that's how we create these silent miracles. Now, I know there's a lot more that we can go into, and we will, and we want to. And so that's where I want you guys to get in on our Instagram page and our Facebook page. Make sure you're paying attention in the office when you come in, asking more questions, and engaging in any events and workshops that we'll be doing in the future. So I wish you and your family the best health possible.